And welcome to our community. Susie Thomas with you this morning. So happy to welcome Ray Fate from Hammer and Nails, our good friend. How are you?
I'm fine. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, not a problem at all.
Always exciting what's happening with Hammer and Nails.
I'll say.
You've been doing this for how long, Ray?
Well, I've been with Hammer and Nails for about a year and a half. I worked for community services for 25 years or so, and then retired for one day.
Mm-hmm. I know how that goes.
And then I went to Hammer and Nails because I love the mission.
Yeah.
You know, we're only in Stark County, and we're only for Stark County. We don't report to some higher, well, we have one higher authority we report to, the higher authority.
Yes.
But other than that, we control our own set of rules and who we help and how we help. And I get a lot of client contact, which I really appreciate. Because it makes you know why you're there. It reminds you of why you got to go out and do fundraising tomorrow.
We are going to get into some of the stories of client contact. But did you do volunteering with Hammer Nails before you actually got? How did one day after retirement they say, "Oh, call Ray Fate, he's available"?
Well, that's weird, isn't it? Well, Ernie Schott, who did own Taggart's and Kennedy's, was on the board of Hammer Nails and also served time on the board of community services. So we all knew each other. And he knew I was leaving community services, and they knew that they needed a new director because Darlene was calling it a day.
Yep.
And so they called and said, "Hey, would you be interested in this?" And I'm like, "Well, sure." I mean, I do a lot of construction as a hobby.
Okay.
My brother and I own acreage together.
Okay.
And we've built our own barns and our own picnic pavilions and our own sheds, and half the time they're pretty good and the other half the time they're so-so, but we do the best we can. Mm-hmm. And so building and fixing things is like a hobby. So I had a chance to go fix things and build things for people and help them.
Yeah.
It seemed too good to pass up.
Well, let's talk about the difference. Now, Hammer and Nails is different from Habitat for Humanity. Let's talk about the ways, because there's a need for both.
There is. I mean, other than sharing the first two letters of our names, that's it. That's where the similarity ends.
Okay.
And a lot of people do get that confused.
Mm-hmm.
Habitat's a national organization. They're a local chapter. They do other things, but their main thing is to build houses for people. Our main thing is to fix up, maintain, repair houses so people can stay in their homes maybe a little longer, or we can preserve that property, paint it so it doesn't start to rot, replace the steps so they're safe. And we do a lot of not a lot, we don't do enough yet, but we do a number of wheelchair ramps for people.
Nice. Mm-hmm.
And our goal, while we're trying to help that family, we also upgrade the entire neighborhood. Mm-hmm. If you see what happens after we paint a house in the neighborhood, a big old 2.5-story monster. Yeah. Well, they're the ones coming over thanking us because they're the ones that got to look at it every day. Mm-hmm. And so it helps more than just the people living in that house.
Well, when we think about even newer homes, how they are always, it's a house, so it's always yelling for something to be done to it. Then we think of the homes that were built in 1930s, 1940s, and the people who are living in them generally are more elderly and maybe not able to do some of these things for themselves. Is that normally the people that you're helping?
That's a pretty good description of probably the slim majority of our clients, probably 50 to 60% of them. You know, let's face it, the husband and wife bought this house, when they first moved to Canton, and he had his job at the mill. Yeah. Because everybody had a job at the mill back then.
Exactly.
And they had a nice standard of living working at that mill. Mm-hmm. Except the guy worked himself to death. So when he turns 60, he dies. Mm-hmm. She's been in that house alone for 20 years now, 25 years, even 30 years, and doesn't want to move, has no desire to move. It's been their house, their lifelong house. Even if she just desperately said, "I'm willing to climb that ladder and paint the top of this 32-foot peak," it's impossible. Mm-hmm. So they may have every intention in the world of trying to keep things to where they want them to be, but there are limitations. So those limitations are what dictate our choices. We give preference to elderly, disabled, veterans, and anybody that's facing some sort of detriment to being able to do the work themselves.
Right. Are there any financial parameters if someone is able to pay but not able to do this, can they call you and make a nice donation or something like that? Or what is it there? How do you make that call there?
That's a tough one. We don't charge for our work. We don't even insinuate that we would like a donation. We're not going to operate that way. But we understand the problem. If you have rotting front steps, you can call 100 contractors and be lucky if one shows up to give you an estimate because it's just such a small job.
Yes.
So in those cases, if it's like that, if it's an absolute safety and health thing, we'll sometimes look the other way on income. Because we usually like to be 200% of the poverty level, which varies by the size of the family. But we'll use our discretion. And sometimes I will concede that some of these folks go on to become donors. But that is never, ever, ever going to be a condition for our help.
That's not your purpose of helping
No,
them. You're
no,
helping
no.
them to help them.
Absolutely.
What about veterans? I would think as people are coming home and there are more needs for wheelchair ramps and so forth, I would imagine no financial limits there. There's somebody served our country, yes?
Yeah, I mean, if they've got the resources to have a ramp put in for them,
Then they probably will.
then they should, yeah, because you can't understand the value of these ramps until you've lived without one and when you needed one. So if they have the resources to get one, they probably did it already. So we're at the point now where we have people that do not have the resources.
Right.
And we could do way more than we're doing. But again, somebody has to fund it. So that's my job to go out and find that funding.
So I would think funding and manpower are big things with you. People who like to do fixer-upper things, people that are good at it. You'll take all these volunteers, yes?
Yeah, we do. And we have now 3 teams of 2 guys each. They're all retired. One team of the guys, they come in 3 days a week and work from like 9 to 3. The other 2 teams come in one day a week, and they'll work 9 to 3 or 4. And that's all. That's more than enough. We're really knocking the jobs out now, because most of the jobs are single task: put on a new storm door, replace the porch railings, and sometimes they get a little bit bigger than that. Now, the whole house repaints, we usually use our bigger groups, which are usually church groups, school groups, business groups, because there's hundreds of hours of labor into a whole house repaint. But
we've got
jobs,
5 colleges in town, and I would think there's some good manpower there where they need to do a little community service. Can you tap into some of those big kids?
We do, but I can tell you this, and this is not an insult to college kids, but most of them couldn't paint to save their lives. Because no one's ever taught them how to paint.
Wow.
And I painted with my dad from the age of 13 on. My dad worked a second job painting, and I went with him. And I enjoy painting, and I get frustrated if I see somebody there with a brush in their hand and a paint dripping off their elbow. And we've had that.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
So, yes, there is a lot of labor available in the form of college students, but sometimes you need some on-the-job training.
A little, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I understood.
Yeah.
Yeah, our family was like your family. We were learning these things early
Oh,
on.
yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen like that anymore. I don't know why.
Okay.
But believe me when I tell you.
Kids today.
Kids today. We've had some that are very surprisingly good at what they do.
That's good.
Yeah.
Seasonally, I'm thinking there's got to be different things happening now that it's freezing cold outside and as opposed to putting on a porch. So what kinds of things are you doing right now?
Well, these days, we'll be doing interior work. Like, we don't do interior painting unless it's part of a repair. If you've had water damage and we replace some drywall, then we'll paint. To paint just to change colors, I'm sorry, we can't do that anymore.
Well, no, this is not fixer-upper as trying to create a dream home.
Right.
This is fixing things that really need fixed to make it inhabitable, yes?
Yes, and you have to just remember the acronym PUSH. We do preservation, upkeep, safety, and health. And that's it. We don't do remodeling, and we don't do decorating. And believe me, you would not want me decorating your house. So we do a lot of interior work now.
So you're not coming in to put in my crown molding?
You would be shocked to see how that would turn out.
Okay.
But we do a lot of interviews now. We try to keep an active list of 40 families, 40 buildings, and then we'll work at chopping it down all summer long, and then when we get down to a certain number, we'll do some more interviews. But we kind of just bit by bit, and then when we hit the winter, we get all stocked up for the construction season.
Nice.
So they're out doing interviews. We study the house carefully. We inspect it, and we do what they need, not what they want.
Okay. And again, you explain to them, I like this PUSH acronym. Remind us again what that stands
Preservation, upkeep, safety, and health. And if there's safety and health issues, now see, we don't do electrical, plumbing, heating and cooling. We don't do any systems because those workers have to be licensed. And I used to have one of those a long time ago, but I don't anymore. And so we stick to carpentry and paint. We do some cement work, masonry work, concrete work. I know, guys, cement's an ingredient in concrete. I have to get it right.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks for making that
Yeah,
distinction.
because they'll go crazy on me.
Some of these older homes had some unsafe building materials back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
How do you deal with that?
Our crew leader and our staff project director are both lead certified for lead paint. And, well, we have test kits. We test. And then we proceed which way is appropriate. In some ways, it's just appropriate to encapsulate it, which means paint over it. But if you have to peel it off, then you get into a lot more extensive work.
Right.
Yeah, so we don't run into too much asbestos, although there is asbestos siding. But as long as you don't mess with it, you can leave it there.
Yeah, it's the touching it or
it's breaking
exposing
it up.
Yes, that's
it's
when
called
it gets
making
dangerous.
it friable and sending particles into the air. In which case, we would not do that. We'd have to bring in a crew for that.
Right. Do you ever have people with a situation, you go in and they really are living in an unlivable home?
I remember the first house we took Pastor Barry in. He's on our staff, and we took him into a house, and we left. We got back to the office. He didn't say a word the whole way back. He said, I don't think I can do this. This house was so third world. I mean, no locks on the doors. The toilets didn't work. One sink worked. I don't know if there was heat or not. It was at a time of the year that we wouldn't have noticed one way or the other. Floors with holes in them. Just unbelievable. And so there's times we're looking at a house now that's got so much work and they got code violations left and right. You could not, it's unfixable.
What do you do?
We try to encourage them to move out. We try to work a plan with them to either, depending on age and situation, get yourself an apartment. Let's just get this thing. We'll take it down. We'll help take it down. We'll combine with some people. At least you'll have the lot value you can sell. But there's $70,000 in repairs just first glance at this house. It was probably worth $58,000.
Yeah. And often somebody living by themselves, and
yes, that's the case.
Which can be dangerous in itself.
Yeah.
Yes, there's, going up and down stairs and so forth. Sometimes they shouldn't be.
I know. My 88-year-old mother lives alone.
Wow.
And we've all offered her a place for everybody out there in listener land.
Yes.
She doesn't want it, man.
No, she
She's
likes her home.
Yeah, she's independent as all get out.
Well, I know there have got to be some really happy stories as well. There've got to be some really great turnaround types of stories. And you think about that because we're going to take a short little break here. We're going to be back with Ray Fate from Hammer and Nails after these words. You're listening to Our Community.